Welcome to Behold. I'm Beth, and today Craig and I are joined by Pastor Nick Morlet, our high school pastor here at Arcade Church, and he's going to talk us through kind of the realities of having students that have cell phones. What maybe you should or shouldn't do as a parent, some guidelines, and some really practical...
Yeah.
Craig.
Uh-huh.
Craig, I'm...
Okay, I'll get back to you. All right. Okay. All right, bye.
Some manners of when you should or shouldn't answer cell phones.
Oh.
Anyway, it's a great show, so give it a listen. Here we go. Hey, Craig.
Are we on?
I think we're on.
How you doing, Beth?
Should we start over? I don't know. That's pretty good.
Let's just roll with
Let's
it.
just go. Here we go.
Yeah.
So there's
a needle pulling thread.
There's some pretty awesome things to celebrate in the Hardinger home.
Yes.
Tell us.
43 wonderful years of marriage.
Standing ovation.
Yep.
That is awesome.
Yep.
That's
She said
awesome.
yes, and she's still saying yes.
Yeah. Debbie's pretty awesome.
She is. She's an incredible person, but
Yes.
I could not ask for a more perfect wife for me.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
it's great.
Yeah.
I hope she would say the same about me, but that could be another podcast, you know.
We already did one about
Yeah.
marriage.
No, because it's actually tomorrow, September
Right,
4th.
yes.
We're recording on September 3rd. And we've got some responsibilities tomorrow. And so we celebrated last week.
Yes.
And for those of you who live in Sacramento, you know about this. But for those of you who do not, in Sacramento, there's this wonderful thing called Music Circus. And
It used to actually be in a tent.
yeah, I mean, when Debbie was a girl, it was. Did you ever go when you were small?
No.
I bet it'd be August in a circus tent watching a theater in the round.
Right.
And it was just a blast. We absolutely loved
Good.
it. Went out to one of our favorite restaurants, and
I think you should list all your favorite restaurants because,
we may not know what they are.
well, maybe people would want to give you a gift for your anniversary.
Oh yeah,
So,
Ruth Chris, I don't know
California burrito.
California. It's true. Yeah,
The Habit.
they have it. Yeah,
But you guys went to Paisanos, right?
we did.
Is
We
that
went to-
in Midtown area?
It's in Midtown, and it's just one of our favorite haunts. We go there almost always in July with a family from church.
Yeah.
Because they have watermelon pizza. And I don't like watermelon, but I love watermelon pizza. It is amazing.
That's how Debbie gets you to eat your fruit.
That's how Debbie gets
On
me
a
to eat my
pizza.
fruit, because I care for my body.
I know.
I do, you know. And so, but you guys are coming up. Well, yours is April.
We just celebrated 30 years.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
we're a little behind you, but hoping
You're
we'll
catching
catch
up. You're
Yeah.
catching up.
Yeah.
So.
Well, hey, today we have an awesome guest, Pastor Nick Morlet.
Yes, yes.
Nick, I'm so glad you've joined us today.
Yeah, glad to be here.
So Nick and I are on the same team. We're on the Family Ministries
Yeah.
team. So
I apologize
Yeah, thanks.
about that, by the way. So just so you know, I'm sorry.
I
Whatever
can-
is said behind
I
closed
can hear
doors,
you.
I'm sorry.
Hello, I'm right
Oh,
here.
that's right. Okay, sorry.
But since you're a guest, we get to ask you our Bible stats
Yeah,
questions.
okay.
Are you ready?
I'm so ready.
What version do you use?
I use the ESV. I haven't made the switch
Okay.
Great.
to the CSB just yet.
Now, will you, do you think, or do you want to stick with the ESV?
I am. It's to be known.
Yeah,
I really
yeah.
enjoy the ESV. I
Yeah.
like the word for word.
Yeah.
I like being
He's
able to
just
know
smart.
like this is what it's saying. But I haven't spent enough time hanging out with the CSB yet to
Yeah.
really make a decision.
Yeah.
I don't think.
Okay, now hold up your Bible to the camera. Let's see what it looks like. For those of you
This
who
is my current Bible.
aren't watching, it's small, compact.
It is So
leather
here-
bound.
The thing about me,
Looks new.
The thing about me and Bibles, it is pretty new, is that I take them with me everywhere I go,
Mm-hmm.
which means I take them to summer camp and I take them to winter camp
They
and
take
I
a
take them
beating.
to mission trip,
Yeah.
and they just get absolutely destroyed.
Yep.
So I have several Bibles that are on my underlined, highlighted, and they're they're falling apart. and you can,
Waterlogged and-
take out chunks of books and take them with you if you want. And so then I'm always buying newer Bibles because the ones that I have are falling apart. And so that's why I buy the newer, nicer, compact ones to teach from, because my nice ones that I do all the highlighting and everything in, they just get absolutely destroyed.
Yep.
Because I go lots of places.
Yeah.
I also tend to lose them. because I put them down at camp or something and
Have you
forget
ever
where I
put
put
one on
them.
the roof of your car and driven away?
I don't think so, because I usually am pretty good about dropping them in my backpack
Yeah.
before I go
That
to the
happened
next
to
What
me.
place.
about you, Pastor Craig?
Yep,
Sounds
it
like
happened to me
experience.
going from Pittsburgh to Concord. All of a sudden, you hear a thump on Highway 4,
Oh, no.
and it was my brand new Bible
Oh,
that was
my
no longer
goodness.
brand new.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. So, do you take notes in your Bible?
I
Well, you
am
kinda
not
just said.
a big Bible note taker
Not a note taker.
anymore. I used to spend a lot of time highlighting and
Mm-hmm.
Now, why'd you change?
Well, essentially, I found that I wasn't really going back to those notes very
Yeah.
often.
Okay.
And then I would get the new Bible, and I'd be like, "Oh, well, all my notes are in the old Bible," and so I just kind of stopped
Yeah.
taking the notes and doing the thing in the margin. My wife's big on it. She actually just for my son moving into high school gave him a gift. She had been journaling in a Bible for an entire year,
Wow.
and she gave him that gift, and then she started a new one for when my middle son goes to high
That's
school.
very cool. Yeah.
She's
That is a
big on
gift.
that.
I wouldn't wanna give
it
that
is-
away.
It is there was a little bit of like, oh, I don't want to give it away, but I'm going to, because I've been doing this
That's cool.
all this time just for him. So that was a
Yeah.
really neat thing.
So you might highlight, but not very often.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have like little tabs in your Bible? Do you put tabs in your Bible?
I don't. I like like you guys were talking about. I like the little bookmark thing.
That was
just
the next.
because
That's the next question, Nick.
I use it mostly while teaching, but I don't do the tabs and stuff.
Okay.
Because most of the time,
You know where you're gonna
I'm
be
teaching from
anyway.
paper, and
Yeah.
I put the passages straight on the paper, and I go from there.
Yeah.
Okay.
Um,
So you like the ribbon bookmark.
mhm.
Now, if your ribbon bookmark is already taken, and you're going to use another bookmark, do you use a fancy bookmark, or do you use a scrap or a receipt or an old bulletin or whatever's
I
a
am
straw
big
wrapper?
on whatever is around me. I grab that and throw it where I need it to be.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of times it's a pen. It's
Yes.
just whatever.
Yeah.
Just put this
Yeah.
there.
Yeah.
I just need it for a moment to remember this one spot, because I'm going to jump from this passage to that passage or whatever.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for giving us your Bible stats.
Oh, absolutely.
It's kinda
Opening the
fun.
window just a bit more
Uh-huh.
to the life of Nick Morlet.
Yeah.
The crazy life. of Nick
Yeah,
Morlet.
crazy life. Yeah, that's right.
Where Bibles are treasured and destroyed.
Now, how long have you and Eden been married?
17 years.
17 years.
Yeah,
You've got three
17
really
years.
cool boys.
We do.
And
Yep. One in high school, one in middle school, and one in elementary school.
and your wife has a very unique occupation.
She does.
She is a white water raft guide, along with other
She is,
things.
along
but
with
she-
a whole lot of other
Yeah.
things.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
But she
at
she
a
can
Christian
guide.
camp.
Yeah,
Yeah.
she can guide down class 4
She can.
serious type
Mm-hmm.
rivers, and so that's very cool. That's
She's a very
cool.
cool
Really
lady.
cool.
Yeah, she
Yeah.
is. She is.
Okay, so a couple months ago, Craig and I did a podcast on the dangers and pitfalls of smartphones and young people and social media and all of this. And thank you so much for listening to those two. And something you came to us with is kids have smartphones. So what do we do with it,
Yeah.
right? And so we're hoping today you can help us coach parents or disciple parents as they're parenting and discipling their kids to follow Jesus with a smartphone in their hand, because they might already have it, right?
Right.
They already have it, or they need it, or they think they need it, or whatever. So
Well,
you're
you pastor about 70, 80 students, high school students. What percentage of them would you say already have smartphones? I mean, I'm asking a guess.
95 to
90
100. I mean,
Yeah.
I can't think of a high school student who doesn't have a cell
doesn't have a
phone
smart-
in my ministry.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And one of the things that's unique about the book that we read, Anxious Generation, is they have data on that, and they were just highly recommended not to give your high school student or give your student a phone until they're in high school. But realistically speaking, that's just not real life.
It's
so to
an
speak.
incredible challenge. As a parent with a kid
Yeah.
in middle school and a kid in high school, they're in middle school. They were coming home telling me, "Dad, I need this app on my phone because my teacher's playing this game in class and it requires everyone to have their cell phone out to use it." When I got to high school, at the high school orientation, on every wall was a thing saying you need to download these two apps. Both parents and students are going to have these apps on their phones. They're going to be able to have access to these apps throughout the day during school.
Are these public schools or
expected.
private schools?
These are public schools
Okay.
that my kids are going to. But in the public school sector, at least, it's expected that kids have phones. And on top of that, my kid is on a comp soccer team, and the way that the coach communicates to the players is through an app that is on a phone. So without that app, my kid himself would not be able to communicate with his coach. He would have to go through us because we'd have to have the app on our phone. So that allows us to kind of put that responsibility in his hands. Say, you're the one communicating with your coach if you can't make it to practice, if you're running late for some reason or whatever. But a lot of that is done through the phone. It's an expectation that kids are going to have phones.
And an assumption.
And
that
an
the
assumption
kid
that
has
they
one.
do. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay.
So let's talk to a parent who has middle school, high school kids, and their kid does have a smartphone.
Right.
How can we help our kids have a smartphone but be safe with it?
Absolutely.
Talk us through some of that.
Yeah, it begins with conversation right off the bat. I mean, when my kids were pretty young, we gave them each a pocket knife for Christmas one year. And when we gave them that pocket knife, we handed them the pocket knife and we said, hey, this is a fun tool that you get to play with, that you can use to whittle things and you can use to cut things, and that's really cool. It's also very dangerous. It also can hurt you, right? And honestly, for the first month after we had that, my youngest especially just had Band-Aids constantly all over his hands, right? Because he was learning how to use this tool and how to use it effectively,
Absolutely.
right? But in the same way, like when we first gave our son a phone, we sat down and we made a contract with him on paper, and we said, hey, here are our expectations that how you're gonna treat this tool, and here are the dangers of this tool, and here are the ways this tool is gonna be very helpful for you, and here are our expectations. Here's what happens when you don't meet our expectations, right? Here's how long you're gonna lose your phone for. In that contract was, we have a right at any time to pull your phone and to look at it and to look at anything on it. You cannot keep it from us. It is ours. It doesn't belong to you. It belongs to us. We're letting you use it. So just a lot of communication from the front that was just like, this thing is dangerous, right? It is a tool. It is a tool that you're going to use for good, hopefully. But there's a lot of ways in which, like you guys talked about in the podcast, that this thing can be very bad for you. This thing can hurt you in a lot of ways. And so we want to, from the front, let you know that this is true and let you know that we're going to help you to set limits and boundaries around this device so that it's not such a danger.
And you said contract. You can Google cell phone parental, something.
Absolutely.
You don't even have to
Yeah.
think of it yourself, because
Right.
we did that with our youngest too, where, okay, we're putting, but here's the parameters,
Yeah,
right?
absolutely. Yeah. And
So in the contract, you're putting, this is what we expect from you, but also when or if you disobey this contract, this is what we will do in
Exactly.
response. So it's all right there that your oldest would see, if I blow it and get caught, these are the consequences.
Right.
Okay.
And he signs it, we sign it, right? Okay. And we have it at home so that if there's a problem and he pushes back, oh, well, I can't believe you would take my phone away for a week, or we can go, well, you signed the contract, right? Like,
Yeah.
Right.
you knew this
Yep.
was a possible thing that would happen if you disobeyed this parameter that we put on here, and we put the parameters on there on purpose for your good, right?
Right.
And so all that explanation is happening before we even get them the phone. So rather than after the fact, and sometimes you might, if you already gave your kid a phone, you might have to now after the fact go and say, hey, okay, we're going to back up the train a little bit, and we're going to put some parameters around this thing to protect you. And so I would just say communicate a lot right off the bat. Here's why we're trying to protect you. Here's some of the research we heard. Here's some of the things. Go read the book and engage with the statistics so that you can go to your kid and you can say, hey, here's where this is dangerous, and we need to put protections around it. What's amazing is that the phones themselves have, I'm an iPhone, we're an iPhone family, so I couldn't tell you much about Android or whatever, but iPhones have an incredible amount of parental controls that you can put on them to where we've been able to say to our kids, hey, we don't think you should be playing games for more than 20 minutes a day. And so we can set on there, you only get to play games for 20
And then
minutes
it
a
just
day.
goes off
And after
when
that, it turns it off.
Okay.
And it doesn't let them go on games anymore for the rest of the day. And we don't think you really need to be on the internet for more than 20 minutes a day. And so we're going to do that. And at the same time, there's a little button you can click that says, put parental controls on the internet so that they can't access stuff they shouldn't be accessing, which is an incredibly amazing and important little button. Just to press one little button that says, hey, don't let them get to mature content. And it will stop them from getting mature content. So there's a lot of things that we can do. And then the phone is also tracking. So I go in to look at either of my kids' little family ministry, family profile, whatever, and it says right on there, this is how much time they spent on these things today. This is how much time they spent on these things.
How
this
often do you
week.
or Eden look at that kind of stuff?
In the beginning,
You can do it daily, right?
In the beginning, it was daily.
Okay.
In the beginning, I was going on there daily, making sure that the parameters were still working, making sure that everything was working the way it's supposed to. Now it's less often, but regularly. Like if I think, man, it feels like he's been on that phone longer than I thought he had time today. I'll go look. Is everything working properly? Has he figured out a way around it? And in the beginning, yeah. Sometimes they figured out a way around it. Sometimes they learned if they were kind of peeking over our shoulder when we put in the little passcode that they could go and adjust the settings themselves. And we'd catch them and be like, okay, you go to the contract. We're going to take away your phone for this amount of time. We're going to change our passwords and figure out how to continue to. But always the communication around it was, this is for your good. We're trying to help you set limits so that when you're on your own with this device, you're going to already have some sort of limit set in your mind, or at least some sort of idea about this thing's dangerous. This thing could get me in trouble if I let it. And I'm honest and open with my kids. I'm addicted to my phone, right? I'm addicted to it. And I tell them, I don't want you to be as addicted to your phone as I am. And I had no limits when I was growing up. And so that's why we're trying to teach you limits. We're trying.
Well, I think there's something you said that was
there.
interesting in the pre-show appointment that we had, the three of us had. You said and I can't remember exactly what you said, but I think it so rings to be true. Part of the parent's task is to raise up and train our children to be without us and to make decisions when we're not around.
Right.
And to me, that sounds like that's what you and Eden are doing, and you guys do with your youngest. We never had to worry about that because our kid was in college before smartphones came out and stuff.
Right.
But that seems to be what you're trying to do. Is we want to train you to manage this now, because it's not going to get any easier. But you need to learn some skills on how to manage this now.
The reality is, one day they're going to not be in my home anymore.
Right.
One day I'm not going to be right there.
You say
to
that
help
now,
them.
but I don't know. You have a basement.
Hey, be careful.
Yeah.
Thank goodness we live in California. There are no basements.
That's right.
18 years old. I'm going to be, get out of here.
Get out of here.
I've trained you. Get out.
But that's the thing. We're trying to prepare them. One day they're not going to be there with us anymore. Right now we have them, though. So right now when we have them is the time to instill in them some of these ideals, some of these, hey, this thing can be dangerous. Here's the places where it's dangerous. Let's have these conversations now, so that when you're older, you're thinking about them at least.
Right.
Even if you're not, I'm sure they're going to take off most of the protections and things that we've put on their devices when they're their own devices. But there will come a day when they're on their own, and we hope when that day comes that they're ready to do that. And right now, they're not mature enough. I think not giving a kid a phone until a certain age is super helpful because they're not mature enough to set those limits for themselves. Right now, if I put a giant bowl of candy in front of my 9-year-old, he would eat the whole thing until he was ill, right? And in the same way, if I put a phone with no parameters.
That would be true of a 65-year-old man too, by the way. So,
But if you put a phone with no parameters in front of a kid, they're gonna engage with that whole thing until they're ill.
Yeah.
And that's the reality. So, but we have a lot of ways that we can monitor that we can even stop them from seeing certain things. And like I said, that we can even say, hey, I'm not going to give you this much time on this. And amazingly, it's been fun to watch my kids mature in that, right? So my oldest one day came to me and said, Dad, I want more time texting my friends, because he only got 20 minutes or 30 minutes, whatever it was when we first started. I want to have more time texting my friends. I said, okay, well, what are you willing to sacrifice for that? And he said to me, I don't think this game time is that important. And I couldn't believe it, because I thought the games are the best thing you could do on a phone.
Yeah.
But okay. And so we took all of his game time and we transferred it to texting time, so that he could text more with his friends, but he didn't get to play games anymore. And he made that mature decision on his own to say, this is less important than this, and so I want to engage with this more than that. And so that was a cool thing that he got to decide on his own, because we've had these conversations and because he knows we're open to these conversations and him growing up.
There's all kinds of parental boundaries on everything. I mean, with the iPhone, you can make it so if they want a new app, it has to be approved by you.
Yeah, absolutely.
We have Xfinity for our internet, and I could set, like, Sarah's a grown-up now, so not anymore, but I could set it where her devices couldn't log on the internet past a certain time.
Right.
And so then...
You mean like you said, like 7 p.m.,
well,
something like that?
Yes, because, they're doing homework or whatever.
Right.
But, okay, so at this time, internet's cutting off. Her phone charged in my bedroom on my nightstand overnight. So it was, you know what I mean? Like, there are digital parameters, but then you can also set physical parameters too, which I'm sure you guys do as well. Like, you don't just go, oh, here's a phone.
Right. Have at
Good
it.
luck storming the
luck.
castle, or whatever. That's not what they're going to do. But
Absolutely.
no, I appreciate you saying, like, you're taking steps to prepare your boys to be men, right? And that's what part of our job as parents.
That's right.
Is preparing our kids to be adults.
Yeah.
Whether we teach them to fry an egg or do laundry or how to read their Bible, or we go to church regularly. And here's a tool, but it can also be dangerous.
Right.
So I appreciate that. That's
Yeah.
good.
That reminded me of one parameter that I would highly recommend to all parents, to all people everywhere, is we told our kids, hey, your phone does not go in your room at night.
Okay.
And your phone does not go in your room when the door is closed. These are two things that we set up that were super, like, this is an automatic, you lose your phone for a week if we find that you're not doing one of these two things.
Yep.
There's no reason why you need to have your phone in your room behind a closed door. There's just too much trouble you could get into behind a closed door with
Right.
a phone,
Yep, that's
with
right.
FaceTime, with internet, with all these other things, right? So just to protect you as much as we possibly can, we're just saying, hey, that doesn't need to go across the threshold of your door. When there's no parent supervision happening. That's why the door can't be closed, and that's why it doesn't happen when everyone's asleep.
Yep.
It stays. We have a charging station at the house. That's where your phone stays. At night, you go plug it in the charging station, you go to bed, your phone stays. Absolutely.
I think it's wise of you and Eden to put, the contract's great, all that kind of stuff. I think it's also good to put the consequences if one of those contractual things that they signed are gone against. And I think what happens sometimes, and I think I know you and Eden well enough that you wouldn't do this, we want to put the fear of God into our kids. And so we make, if you get caught with this and you lose a phone for 3 years and you've got to do this, and you've got to mow an acre of lawn and put all of these things to try to scare them into obedience.
Right.
And the truth is that does not scare them into obedience. They just disobey. They just find a way. And what happens is when they get caught, then mom and dad aren't ready to fulfill those consequences. So it sounds to me like you guys put consequences through that you can fulfill.
Yeah.
That we're not bluffing here. We will do this. We will take your phone away for a week, even if it means you can't participate in class with that game or whatever. I think that's very important for our younger parents to understand that whatever parameters they put down, they know they can meet those parameters.
Yeah, don't bluff.
Yeah.
You cannot bluff as a
No.
parent.
None of this. You're grounded for a year, and then 2 days later, I guess you're done being
Yeah,
grounded.
you're done. Yeah.
Here's your phone back.
Yeah, because let's face it, most of the time when we're disciplining or punishing our kids, we're kind of disciplining ourselves and punishing ourselves
absolutely.
too. And so we want to make sure that, we're willing to live with this too.
I can live with this because it means now I have to communicate with your coach for the next week because you don't have a phone, right? You want to go hang out with that friend. I'm the one who's going to have to contact their parent and like do all this stuff, even though with my oldest especially, I have the freedom now where he's doing all that work for me and I don't have to do it,
Yeah.
But when I take away his phone for a week, okay, well, now it's on me, or every 10 seconds, what he's doing is at my elbow. Can I borrow your phone? Can I use your phone? I need to use your phone. Can I use your phone? Because I need to contact so-and-so or do this or that. So it's like, all right, we know what we're signing up for, and he knows what we're signing up for.
Yeah.
And we even let him choose. Hey, if you do this, what do you think the consequence should be?
Oof, that's so brutal.
So it was his choice. It's like if he
That's
came
smart,
up.
though.
If I get caught, I won't eat broccoli for a week.
Yeah,
If he
really teach me.
softballed us,
Teach me a lesson.
if he softballed us, we would encourage in the right direction.
Yes.
But so that he knew, like, okay, like this makes sense. Like if I'm using my phone incorrectly, it makes sense I would lose my phone for a period of time.
Right.
That I proved that I couldn't be trusted with that device, so it would make sense that it goes away.
Could I ask a question?
Yes.
Okay. Suppose, one of the parents of your students, let's say it's, I don't know, a sophomore. The parents of sophomores come and says, hey, we have allowed our son/daughter to full access. We now recognize, maybe we read the book Anxious Generation, or we listened to this podcast and your wisdom was good wisdom. What do we do? What do we do with our son or daughter that has had full access to the internet and all that it offers and all that it destroys for a year and a half? How would you pastor them to help their daughter?
Yeah, absolutely. I would say be open and honest. Sit them down and have a real conversation with them. These things are dangerous. Maybe even I've seen some of this stuff already that you're engaging with that is dangerous. And I want to protect you, right? And so that's why I'm going to put in place some new things that we hadn't experienced before. But you have to start from a place of understanding and a place of love. Both of these things, it comes out of, I now understand what I didn't understand before, that this thing is more dangerous than I thought it was. And so because of that, I'm going to change something. Like when sports found out that concussions were really causing damage, they went back and said, oops, now we're going to put in parameters to prevent people from being permanently scarred by these concussions they're having. So in the same way, I have more knowledge now than I used to have, and my love for you hasn't changed. And so I want to help you be protected around this device. It has to start there, and then include them in it. Let them be a part of it. And if at all possible, don't overreact. I caught one of my kids looking at something sketchy on YouTube. And I had a moment there where I was like, oh no, I need to come in and I, like you said, put the fear of God
Guns
in this
blazing.
kid right now.
Yeah.
And I need to make sure he knows that he can never do that again, right? But then in my head, I was like, wait a minute. I also looked at sketchy stuff as a kid, right? And so I was able instead to just sit down and be like, here's why that sketchy stuff is not good. Right? Here's why that sketchy stuff can incredibly hurt and damage you. And here's why I think you got to stay away from it, right? And here's all the really good reasons why that stuff can be a crutch and a drug and addictive and all these things. And so I got to come to him from a place of love, which was heard. You could see it in his face.
Yeah.
He was hearing it so much better than if I came in guns blazing, yelling and screaming and freaking out on the fact that he did something wrong, right? And so instead he was like, whoa, like, Dad's really concerned, right? Like, Dad's really, like, getting serious right now. Like, what's that all about? Like, why is he not yelling at me, you know? And it created a space for us to really have real open communication about the dangers that he was involuntarily stepping into.
Right.
And so I think if we can convince our students, convince our kids, this stuff is dangerous, and here's why, that it's going to go a long way in helping set limits with them.
Yeah.
And honestly, I would say, let's go to lunch, right? Like if you're out there and you're like, this is me and I need help and I don't know what to do, let's go to lunch. Hit me up. Like, let's talk about it. I'll bring you my contract and you can look at that and make your own. Like, let's dive into this together. You're not alone in this battle to help protect your kids from phones.
They buy or do you buy lunch?
Oh, arcade buys for sure.
Wrong answer. Why don't you ask it again?
That is the wrong answer.
McDonald's only.
That's right.
I don't know. McDonald's is expensive now.
Yeah.
I hear Ruth Chris is really nice.
Yeah. Where we take all our,
Concerned parents.
Oh, yeah, all concerned parents.
Yeah, our budget is so huge. We just take everyone to Ruth's Chris.
Also, we're going to need you to increase your giving so that we can.
So we can go to Ruth.
So we can disciple our parents at Ruth's Chris.
Yeah.
No. Okay. We know cell phones are tools, which means they might be dangerous, but they also have maybe a good purpose. I mean, I know for me, I would get lost all over. I'm really directionally challenged. It's almost embarrassing how directionally challenged I am, especially married to a guy that seems to have a map just imprinted in his brain. So I use GPS a lot. So for me, that's a tool, right?
Yeah.
So what do you think for students or kids, what's good for them having a cell phone?
Absolutely. I think for us as parents, the thing that decided getting a device for our kids was our kids were going to start walking from school to places without us. And it was like, if something happens, you need to be able to get a hold of me. Like, that's the bottom line for us. If there's something that goes down, you hurt yourself, someone tries to hurt you, whatever, we want you to be able to get a hold of us. And so for us, like, number one, it's going to put us in communication with our kids more often. It's going to allow me to say, hey, I'm running late to pick you up from school, so hang out for 20 minutes. I'll be there, instead of freaking out and be like, where's Dad? I don't know. Nobody's here to pick me up. And, the yard duty's calling you or whatever. That actually happened to me one time. So that to me, that device in their hand so that they can get a hold of me is really important. My fourth grader, we just got him one of those watches.
Yes.
So he has a way now because he's by himself at school. So we were like, hey, you're by yourself at school. We want you to be able to get a hold of us. So he's got a watch and you can call mom and dad and brothers on that watch, right?
I told you to put my number in there too, just for emergency.
Oh, we will.
Okay.
So number one, they're going to be able to contact. Number two, there is a ton of independence that is given to a kid when you give them the ability to make plans for themselves. You give them the ability to look something up on Google. My kid says, how do you spell this word? I'm like, why don't you look that one up, buddy? Like, you don't need me to look it up and tell you. That's probably what I would do. So just look it up. You would ask Alexa anyway if you were home, right? So look it up. Like, a ton of independence is gained when I can tell my kids, hey, if you want to hang out with your friends, then I want to know where and when you're going to be home, like all these details. And they can go figure out all those details and then come to me and be like, hey, Dad, it's important enough to me to go hang out with my friends that I have communicated with the friend and I've communicated in this way and I know it's going to be at this place at this time until this time. And I'm like, cool. Now give me their parents' phone number so I can call and make sure it's all legit.
And then check on their location in the middle of the time that they're there.
There is a level to which now I know where my kid is at all times because they have a device that I can track, right? So I also have a little bit more control over what's going on in their lives and where they're at. Because they do have this device that is allowing me to be more connected to them throughout the day, every day, while also allowing them to become independent little adults.
Yeah.
Because that's what we're trying to get to. A place eventually where you're making all of your own decisions. Well, we get closer to that place when I give them the freedom to start making plans on their own, and I give them the freedom to figure things out on their own. And then, especially with my oldest in sports, I'm like, hey, if you're late for practice, you're the one telling your coach, not me. If you're sick, you need to get on that thing and tell your coach, I'm sick. Because this is how it's going to be when you have a job. This is how it's going to be if you are a professional athlete one day like he wants to be. These are the things that you're going to have to be able to do. And so I can start to let him do some of those things now because I've put this device in his hand that's going to allow him to have that freedom and that responsibility.
But you've put the device in their hands with some very rigid, strict, you're pretty strict. I actually was surprised when you were telling us your parameters. I was like, ooh, you're pretty, good. Because it's easy to not be strict, or you think it's easy.
Oh, yeah.
It's easy until the world's falling apart.
Yeah. That's true.
But, I really respect that about you and Eden, putting those, because I know it's hard, because you're kind of
And
going against the
enforcing
flow.
those.
Yeah.
And you're fighting in the beginning.
Yep.
And now it's also led to fantastic, and that's the third thing I would say is great
Yeah.
about putting this device in my kids' hand. It has led to so many fantastic, deep conversations with my kids about the why and about when they come to me saying, hey, my friends don't have these limits. Why do I have to have these limits? Well, we have great conversations about the why in those places. And as my son is getting older and older and older, and we're starting to say, he's convincing us, add 10 minutes here. Let me change this. Maybe you don't have to have complete control over this. And we're starting to have real conversations where we can hand him back freedom and trust. And we can say, okay, you've proven yourself faithful with this device in this area, So we're going to give you a little bit more control and a little bit more control, a little more control. Till one day I'm going to be saying, hey, you've proven yourself that you can handle this thing and you have it all. Maybe I'll buy him a phone for his graduation and say, hey, this phone belongs to you. It's not mine anymore. It's your device, right? And I can trust that you're going to do something good with it and not something silly because you've proven that to me through the years. So it's led to countless fantastic conversations with my kids. Hard conversations, absolutely. Conversations where he was really, really annoyed with me. Absolutely, right? Why do I have to do things my friends don't have to do? Why can't I do things my friends get to do? Why are you taking away my phone right now? And again, contract.
Yeah.
Oh, right. Yeah,
Contract.
I forgot. I broke the rules, right?
Yeah.
So it's gaining responsibility. It's leading to great conversations. And he is growing up a wiser young man because of it.
He's a pretty cool kid. I like your boys.
All three of them are.
All three of them are.
They're good guys.
I have a favorite. I won't tell you who it is, though. We'll let them guess.
Keep them guessing.
I know.
That's
it's kind of
right.
fun.
That's right.
Oh,
Yeah.
my goodness.
Well,
I can see
hey,
that.
Nick, thank you.
Yes.
This has been
good. Thank you.
insightful
Yeah.
and encouraging
You might be getting a full email box.
Yeah, it's
with
possible.
lots of lunch invites
Lots of lunch invites.
that other people are going to take you out and pay for.
Yeah.
If
Bring
there's-
coupons.
Bring coupon.
But there's a coupon.
Yeah. A coupon.
Don't worry. I'm
Yeah.
like, hey, Subway's doing 2 for $5 today.
There
That's
we
what
go.
we're.
There we go.
There you go.
I pay attention, you know.
That's the ministry is
right.
finding the deals.
I got
right?
enough points to buy you Dutch Bros. Let's go.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well,
My
Craig,
pleasure. Thanks for having
thanks,
me.
Nick. Can
Yeah.
you take us to
Yeah.
our Behold chapter?
Just in as we were talking in the pre-show appointment about this particular episode, what was in my head was a line that the Apostle Paul says in Titus chapter 2. And it's a very familiar passage to a lot of us, but Paul begins in Titus 2, verse 11, "For the grace of God has appeared, bringing salvation for all people." And he could have stopped there, and we would be giving a standing ovation to God for the grace that he's given to us. But he goes a little bit further on and says what this grace of God does. Verse 12, "Instructing us to deny godlessness and worldly lusts, and to live in a sensible, righteous, and godly way in the present age, while we wait for the blessed hope, the appearing of the glory of our great God and Savior, Jesus Christ." And that's kind of what it sounds like Nick pastored us through just in these few minutes, is we live in this between time of the grace of God and the glory of God. And one of the things that's a real aspect of our life is the smartphone. It is a major, even for people who aren't addicted to it, it's a major, major tool that it's very difficult for us to even think that we can live without. And so as we've experienced the grace of God and as we wait for the glory of God, we live in this in-between time, and smartphones are part of that.
Yeah.
And that can be an actual tool that leads us into beholding the beauty of Christ. Mm-hmm. And so we hope that happens with you parents and grandparents. I think you've mentioned before, you may want to mention in the intro, listen to this with your kids.
Yeah.
Watch it with your kids. Listen to it, watch it with your grandkids, and just say, hey, this is kind of where we are, especially for those parents that may have started out and your kid now is a freshman or sophomore, and they've had full access to a smartphone, and you're seeing the residual effect of that on their life. There might be some good wisdom that Nick has given us. Thanks, brother. I really appreciate you. If I were a high schooler, I'd want you to be my high school pastor.
Well, maybe not after you watch this episode, but
that's true.
No, after your parents watch the episode.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Well, hey, we're so glad you've joined us again. We are so grateful to have you join us, listen, or watch. If you have questions, info@arcadechurch.com. If you have questions for Nick, his email address is nickm@arcadechurch.com. You can call the church office and talk to him. He's very generous with his time and is a very caring pastor, so he'd love to talk to you, I know. In the meantime, share, like, subscribe, do all the things that everyone tells you to do to podcasts.
Yeah.
But in the meantime, take care, and we'll see you next time.
See ya.
Bye.